Come, assistant. We must perform the ritual.
Yes, master.
Give me the Tenenbaum weaves. Thank you, assistant. We take these Tenenbaum weaves in order to resurrect the tower that is Kharis, our mummy. Yes?
I don't think you're taking this very seriously, sir.
Of course I'm taking this seriously. It's a very important ritual.
Why are you keep talking like that?
Talking like what? Why what?
Why are you talking like that?
Like what?
Ah!
Kharis! Kharis, avenge me!
The curse of an evil love entombed in a deathless killer, lusting demon of doom, creeping from its tomb of hate. The curse of the mummy. Welcome back to Entertainment Rebooted, specifically another episode of Cinema Revisited, the Universal Monsters, where we're watching all of the classic Universal Monster movies, and we're talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the iconic, and then discussing a little bit about what we would do if Universal actually hired us to try to make a film similar to this for a modern audience. Of course, as always, I am joined by my esteemed co-host, DJ. Say hi, DJ.
Hi, DJ.
Ha, ha, ha. Just for that, DJ, I'm not even going to ask you for the plot. Here's the storyline, folks. All right, ready? An irrigation project in the rural bayous of Louisiana unearths living mummy Kharis, who was buried in quicksand 25 years earlier. That started coming out more like my very crappy Elvis Presley. Well, that's essentially the plot of this movie. The Mummy's Curse is a 1 hour and 1 minute film. So we're going to talk about it for 2 hours and 2 minutes because we're a bunch of jerks who hate the color of the sky. Speaking of hatred, DJ, what's good about this movie?
Speaking of hatred, what's good? It's short. Okay, I'm done.
Well, since everything in this film is a contradiction, including the ads, a lusting demon of love from his tomb of hate.
Oh, it's the film is really fast. Like a lot. I remember looking at it, it was like half hour in. I'm like, there's a lot that's already happened, and we're 30 minutes in this film. Like it actually kind of fixed some of the pacing problems of earlier films we watch, where it feels like it's dragging on for no reason.
Unfortunately, it fixed it to the point where
it's like bam, 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 we're done. But it doesn't feel like it's being rushed. It paces pretty well. There's just not a lot of substance to it. I feel like they cut it a little short because they just didn't have enough to. They didn't know what to do with it, so they just gave it exactly what it needed. Yeah. So it feels succinct. That's. It was joking that it's short, but it's succinct. It gives the plot and it's done. It doesn't. It was like some of those words. It's not pretentious. It's not sitting here like, well, crap. We need this to be an hour and 30 minutes. Let's cram a bunch of stuff in here that is interesting, but not. A lot of the other Universal films felt like they should have been shorter or longer. Cut out some of the extra stuff or develop it more. They can't find their middle ground. They end up trying to pad it with extra material and end up overdoing it, and now you almost want more. This one just gives you what it has, and it's done. I like it.
So the goodness is the fact it's succinct.
It's succinct, yes.
Yeah.
Especially after the last 3 we watched. It was the last Mummy film, which has like a 20-minute chase scene in the swamp. Or the House of Frankenstein, which is like 2 separate movies smashed together.
See, I think that this, I almost feel like this film, being as short as it is, was supposed to be the B plot for House of Frankenstein, but then they were just like, it already feels kind of janky with the Dracula scene. I don't think we can actually throw the mummy in this. I'm not sure, boss. I don't think this is a good idea anymore. So they just decided to make it a double feature, quote unquote.
Maybe it feels like they did have like a plot that was meant to be even smaller. It kind of actually feels that way. Like it was going to be a small, simple plot. Like it was part of something else that they just gave more to it. But it feels also to add to that, and its succinctness, it follows the last one pretty well. So being short, sweet, and to the point as a good follow up for the last one, I liked it.
Yeah. I would say that the good in this one is it's pretty clear on its tone. That's something that, especially with the last film, House of Frankenstein, the tone really kind of seemed wonky. And some of the previous Universal ones, they seem to kind of jump their...
The last Mummy film was a little janky.
Right. So this one, I would say the good is that it actually is like, it's a horror movie. It knows it's a horror movie. It's going to stay as a horror film.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's good. How about bad?
I would almost say it wraps up, but I don't actually think it wraps up too quick. I think it is a good. My bad for this actually is it's a little mismanagement of the characters. There's a lot of side characters in this.
Yeah.
And like everybody gets killed, like all the side characters. I think more people died in this Mummy movie than the last three combined. The Mummy kills a lot of people. But there was a lot of characters to keep track of. I kept mixing them up. The researcher who was with the niece of the
Halsey?
Halsey with the niece. I thought his assistant and the niece were two different characters. I didn't know why they were always hanging out together. I didn't realize they were the same person. And then the boss man, they jumped scenes so many times, went to so many different places. The funny enough is the three characters I never confused the whole film were the three like the random side stereotypes.
Gooby.
Yeah, and
The Cajun guy.
the Cajun guy and and I think the other guy was Hispanic, but I'm not really sure. I don't know. It's like it's black and white too, but it's like everybody's accents and like the way it was really difficult. Like it's a very Cajun town, so there's a lot of mix of Spanish, French, and British culture and language, and you can tell, and it's hard to kind of tell what everybody. But they were like very stereotypical, like foreigners, and then a very stereotypical. I think this we're watching, like it's like very stereotypical black guy, like of the time. Like it was just, it was just these four main characters and a ton of stereotypes, and also that made it difficult to keep track of like who was who and what was going on and why anybody mattered. Just so many characters.
Yeah.
It's like a little overwhelming.
Yeah, there were quite a few characters, and sometimes they were just kind of... It was hard to really hook on and pay attention to every little intricacy that was happening with them.
That was the assistant. The assistant of the Egyptian guy.
Yeah.
I mixed him up. I didn't realize it was the same guy. He was the kid on the crew. Like... They kept changing outfits. There was just so many people to keep track of, and it was all in black and white. It's just everybody sort of blended together.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, that's kind of bad. There is a large cast of characters, and they're all fairly important in their own.
That's
ways.
the problem. They're all important. The background characters in a lot of other films, especially Frankenstein, they show up as comedy or whatever, but they don't show up. Then they're gone. They're out of the scene.
Yeah.
This one. Every single character, including the random background characters, all matter, and they all are involved in the plot directly, and it just gets messy.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty bad. I don't know, just the shortness I think is bad. It's not necessarily like really ugly. It's just it is one of those movies where because of how short and succinct it is, there's no fat. But at the same time, there's not really a lot to chew. As a result,
there's no meat or fat.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where it's just very short. By the time the movie's over, you're just kind of like, oh, well, I guess that was kind of a thing. It's just, I think it's bad because it's very clearly this is the B-side movie, and I think they were doing a gimmick where they were trying to do two movies in one screening. because that's kind of how it feels. It's like I think the last one was an hour and 10 minutes. So if you do like an hour and 10 minutes, and then you have like a 15-minute intermission, and then you do another screening, that kind of seems like this was kind of the gimmick from the thousands of ads I read on this one. The fact that some of them actually reference like the House of Frankenstein before this movie.
Makes
So
sense.
I think it's bad because it's like Universal pretty clearly tried to do a double feature, and they very clearly made House of Frankenstein and The Mummy's Curse.
It's actually funny. Your bad was my good. Or-
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it was good that it was succinct, but it was bad because it's like it's so short that it doesn't feel like a movie.
Yeah. I actually thought it was. The pacing was so quick that I felt like it made up for it because there's just so much happens. But like if you, I can get it, especially get some of the other ones we watched that were like over. Like I think the first one, Dracula, was 70 minutes. I think
It was like 76.
yeah.
Well,
So this
yeah.
this is shorter than the first one they did, which was early in the series. That is kind of wild, but
Yeah.
I think it's the shortest one of all of them we watched so far.
It was noticeably shorter. Like I said, I think the last one was like 71 minutes.
Which is actually kind of funny because there are some moments where it still feels a little fillery.
yeah,
Even in as short as it was.
And I think that that's part of the issue is like these two. If you're combining these and turning it into a double feature specifically, you can kind of tell that they're meant to be a double feature because there's not so much that they're really like diving into where they're like, oh wow, this is like really deep, and they're actually like you're getting into the film and you're thinking about it.
It would also cover all the monsters too. If they
Yeah, and
did
you
House
covered
of
all of
Frankenstein and the Mummy, you basically get everybody.
Yep. So
They
I
probably
think
just couldn't figure out a way to fit the Mummy into the House of Frankenstein, so they just made it a double feature so it matches it.
Yeah, like I said, it almost feels like, I don't know if I said this before when we were recording this, but it kind of feels like they meant to have all of this stuff put together and just make it like a trio kind of film.
Yeah, you did say it
But
when we
they-
were talking beforehand. Yeah,
Yeah, so
like it
yeah.
was all supposed to be in the House of Frankenstein as one film, and they realized that would be too long, so they cut it, and then they just added footage to make Mummy longer,
Yeah.
and it ended up like barely being an hour.
Yeah, like it seems like maybe they cut out some of the characters that were supposed to go through all three of them. Like they cut some footage and stuff because there is like a jump, and it does feel like you have like a duology going on, like two films at once, like two separate stories going on in the House of Frankenstein with the Dracula subplot that starts before they even run into Frankenstein and Wolfman. So it could have been that they were planning to make it like a trilogy, like a trio movie where you have three separate little stories. but
That
then they
actually
looked
almost
at
would
it-
have worked better though, because then it wouldn't have felt like two. It almost feels less jarring if you have three, because then it's an anthology rather than two weird breaks of a film.
Yeah.
You have three succinct stories. That actually would have been better than if they just did the two, because the two, it feels really weird when they have like this cool side plot meeting Dracula, and then suddenly this. But then after that, they meet the Mummy, or the Mummy's first, and then it's like, oh, he's parading through the monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have almost felt better.
All right. How about ugly? What's ugly about this?
Okay, so this one, for me, the part that kind of ruins the film over everything is that the mummies don't really have a lot. Kharis, I mean, Kharis has always just been the, kill them, slave driver kind of thing. We're like, go kill the cult tells you to. Do whatever we tell you to do. But the girl who's the new mummy, she doesn't really do anything but be a damsel in distress the whole time.
Yeah, she's not even like mummy like.
She pops up out of the ground and then just runs from Kharis the whole time and then ends up back in the tomb. And then that's it. She has no character development, no plot, nothing. She's just there. Like they didn't know what to do with her. And Kharis does exactly the same thing he's always done. Now, I will say, as a flip side to that, I don't want to be too harsh on it. It's like Kharis himself was really fun in this one. He does a lot more. He's a lot more active. He kills a lot of people in this one. And he actually almost seems a little bit more menacing than he has in the past. But his whole motive is getting the girl as it's always been, and she doesn't do anything the whole movie.
Mhm.
That's the ugly. You have this like the ugly is that you have a strong Kharis is at his best while she does nothing. I would have kind of liked to see more of her because then that would have been a cool dichotomy where you got like the old Kharis being at his best, and then you have the new mummy doing something, anything, fighting the mummy, joining him, anything other than just literally running from actor to actor, and background character to background character. Yeah, literally gives exposition and then just runs into the arms of everybody as Kharis kills everyone she tries to confide in. And that's all she does is basically set up targets for him to take out accidentally. And Kharis was really, I was engaged in Kharis, but I was expecting her to do something and nothing really happened, especially when they had her do the doctor assistant thing. Like, that was really interesting. Oh, she's starting to remember her past as a mummy. And then she just becomes a damsel. Like, they're about to do something with her and then throw her right back into being a damsel again.
Yeah.
It was just kind of sad. Like, you almost had me. And then it was gone.
Yeah. So my ugly and iconic kind of combine. So if you want to do your iconic, or do
you go ahead and do both, and then I'll finish.
Okay, I'll bridge. Okay, so the ugly is Princess Anaka. I think just her character in general, like you said, she provides exposition. She doesn't really seem to do much of anything except for run, and then at the end, she ends up back in the tomb anyway. It's very anticlimactic.
Especially, I just want to add real quick because you said that part of the reason also it hurt Chatsby so bad is how interesting her character was in the last movie.
Yes,
she had a ton of character in the last film. And then they don't do anything with her. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Continue.
So it is a thing though where it does feel like she's very she's just kind of glossed over.
Yeah.
And she's used as a plot driver and she's used as a plot device. And she is this expositional dump, essentially. She remembers things conveniently. She knows things conveniently. She does all this stuff. And then at the end, she ends up back in the tomb anyway. It's very anticlimactic. The iconic is when we first run into Princess Anaka. That scene, the scene itself is iconic. And I even, like, we were watching it, and as you know, you were here. As we were watching it, I was just kind of pointing out, I was like, oh, this makes it so much darker. This makes the last film darker. And the last film was already dark. Because she literally drowned. In the last one, they got into the swamp and they sunk in quicksand and drowned.
Yep.
That's dark. We had never seen the monster succeed in killing the damsel.
Yes. That was the thing. Exactly.
Yes.
Every mummy film, the mummy gets thwarted and she gets saved. He got her.
Yeah. And so when she comes back and she's the mummy, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, that makes the last film so much darker. So much darker, because not only did she drown at the end of it in quicksand, now she's cursed to live eternally as a mummy herself.
Yep.
And the way that they show her like coming out of the mud from the swamp, the whole scene was just shot so well.
That was really good.
The makeup was really good. Her actions, her movements were on point. They really were. It was creepy.
She did this like jerking, and she was like she was just moving first time. She mimicked really well. What was Lon Chaney's movements from the first one he did as a mummy, where he first comes out of the tomb and he starts jerking and like moving. She did it. It was amazing.
And it was kind of like a mixture of Chaney and Karloff.
Yeah.
In the way that she was moving, because she starts out very slow and it's a lot of the little hand movements and things, and then she is doing this like jerking, and it's unsettling, and the costuming is done so well. Like, her clothes are tattered, and it feels like, yeah, this is a woman who's been in a bog for 25 years, like just buried in quicksand, and she's come back to life and is like cursed eternally for life. And it's just like the way that she's introduced, I was just like, this makes it so much darker. This makes it so much more interesting. And then it's like, okay, is it going to be like she's also going to be killing, or is it her trying to cure herself? Is it like, because she's the one that's cursed?
Yeah, what are they gonna do with it?
Yeah, what are they going to do with it? And so the iconic part was just like, you introduced this princess mummy character in such a cool, interesting, dark, horrific way. It was actually like horror.
Yeah.
The last 3 or 4 Universal monster films have been so cheesy that now you actually have like this horrific introduction of a monster. And it's like, I am invested. I am in this.
And then they do.
And then
with it.
immediately she gets into the water, cleans herself off, and then the Cajun man goes, and we joked that he went because he was like, oh, finally a woman in the bog. Nobody's going to look for her.
What?
You know?
It takes her he says when he finds her that she's wet but she's cold. He thinks she's sick because she's like cold because she's dead. You know, she's undead. And like that the descriptions and the scening was like really interesting. And then she just turns into a damsel in distress the rest of the film.
Well, and she turns into another secretary.
Yeah. Yes.
And the thing is that she's doubled down on a character that already exists. And not to mention that like that character is just a waste of a good actress, because she was good in her own scenes. The actual secretary lady, she was good in her own scenes, but that's another thing too, is because of how short the film is, like the resolution with their relationship feels very quick and very forced, where it's just like, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and I think I'm going to take this secretary off your hands for you. And then the uncle is just like, yeah, take her. She sucks. Literally, since you walked in, she can't like stop drooling over you. Just take her.
Basically,
please.
Yes. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And it's just, also the thing is with how short the film is, they still managed to get like these little subtle like jabs on, you know, they get jabs in pretty much at women and all the other like side characters and their little cultures and their stereotypes and stuff. And it's like, in 61 minutes, you managed to do something that I understand, looking through the lens of like modern times at this film, that's very ugly. But it's just like, okay, you have 61 minutes. You had this really short thing. You kind of screwed up this like really interesting Princess Anaka thing. You could have made a really big horror film. Instead, let's take 15 minutes of runtime to make jabs at the secretary and all the side characters.
Let's make sure that we have enough time in the movie to be sexist and racist at the same time. Yeah. No, and it does come across that way too. This film feels like they told us we have to have other people besides white people in our film. Well, we'll put them in there, but we're not going to treat them very well.
Yeah, and the characters
like, dude.
And the characters are so stereotypical that they're practically caricatures.
They were caricatures. They were literally caricatures. Now, some of them, despite their caricatureness, were still interesting. Well, and because they gave them actual character. And I will respect that. Like, they might have been a little like bigoted when they did it, but they at least gave them character, and everybody treated each other well. Like none of the characters were like racist or bigoted to each other. They were a small community that all treated each other really well. There was a little moment in the tavern where they kind of jabbed at each other's cultures, but it was in friendly. It was friendly, jesting way.
The only relationship that I think actually would have been like you could construe as kind of racist, I guess, would be Gooby and the manager.
Yes.
Like he was the only person that was just like, Gooby.
But at the same time, he still respected his opinion.
He still listened to him.
He still went and talked to him. He respected him and listened to him and treated him like a person. So it was like they stereotyped.
It was bad. It was bad enough that I felt like I needed to say something about it, but it wasn't ugly and it wasn't the bad thing.
No, but that's what I mean. It's like they were trying to be progressive, but they were trying to be progressive 100 years ago. In the most offensive way possible.
Well, in a non-offensive way to the people who actually would be mad about them actually having like culture.
Yeah, it was weird. It was so forced. Like I don't know. It was weird. I couldn't tell if they were trying not to be racist or if they were trying to be racist, like to like get certain audience members to like get off their back. Like,
well, no, the thing is,
we're treating them like human beings, but we're still racist. Don't worry about it.
No, it's because they're literally like people from California, You know, they're people from California, and so they're trying to be very progressive with this stuff. And then they just go, the film takes place in Louisiana. Oh, there's a lot of bigots there. We might have to cut this part of the film. It does kind of feel like it's like they didn't mean to, but also maybe some of the actors kind of were, so they just kind of like put their own little subtle jabs in. They're just like, I have to talk to you like a person, but I'm not happy about it.
It was weird.
It's just
It's
one
a
of those
little
things,
surreal.
Like, and like I
Well,
said,
I've
like
seen-
Modern Lens, like watching that, I was kind of uncomfortable.
But
with some
I've
of it.
seen
Yeah.
other films from that time period that don't do it nearly as rough. You know, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
weird.
It's just one of those things. But yeah, the ugly.
You might be right. Maybe because it was taking place in Louisiana, like, oh, I guess we have to up the racism a little bit.
Yeah, maybe it was something like that. Maybe it was just.
I don't know.
It could also just be. It was 1944. Like, it was a completely different time. Yeah, we were at war with the Nazis and stuff, but
Well, I know that too, but
Yeah.
that's the thing is the way the film is. It's almost trying to be. It's like caught in between that period and modern times in a weird way. I don't know.
yeah.
Like you said, like they were trying to be a little more progressive, but they wouldn't want to be too progressive.
Yeah,
so
so
they had to be a little racist to make sure that they balanced it out.
They were trying to be PC before the political culture shifted.
Yeah.
PC.
What's
was the other
politically
way.
correct right now? Racism is politically correct. Awesome.
Great job, guys.
We did it.
What's the mummy's curse? Extreme amounts of sexism and racism. That's his curse on us.
This was like this whole time.
Oh.
Universal's getting pegged for like being racist for not having minorities in their films. So they're like, all
Well,
right,
and that's not
we'll
even
put them in there, but we're not going to be happy about it.
Well, that's not even fair. Like, and I think the other thing too is that it kind of pointed. It came out more strongly in this one because the last 4 or 5 films have had pretty diverse casting.
Yes.
So it's like the fact that it was diverse casting, but then guy shows up and he's literally playing a caricature, and I was just shocked. I was like, they usually like talk normal, and they're usually like actual like respectable characters.
They had, I think it was what one of the Invisible Man ones had a black woman as like serving them or whatever at one of the places.
Yeah, but she came off as
She
very,
came as a very normal
very
person.
normal
I don't
person,
know
yeah.
why all of a sudden
and
this...
they didn't really make a deal out of it. And like I said, it was kind of, it threw me off because we've had diverse cast,
And they never make caricatures of them before.
yeah, they
Yes.
never make caricatures of it.
It was
and then
really
they turn
weird.
around and it's
And it was heavy-handed. I will say
Yeah.
this to the ones watching, just so you know, it's not light. It is heavy-handed stereotyping. And like that's fine if that's the point, but the problem is the only ones stereotyped in the film are like 4 of the even the Cajun lady who was doing the singing was not stereotyped. She was pretty unique of a character.
She was a unique character.
It was
the stereotype was she leaned very heavily into the French aspect of Cajun culture. But even
But that
not,
wasn't a caricature. That's
Well-
like it was those 3 characters.
yeah.
They were like heavy-handed caricatures of themselves, and I'm like, and it just stood out so strong. I feel like if you want to make caricatures of people, you have to do it to everyone,
Yeah.
like the way The Simpsons does it or Family Guy, where everyone is a parody. That's the point.
Yes.
You can't do it where like you just have just the 3 like main minority characters as side characters be caricatures of themselves. It makes them stand out even worse,
Well, right, and then
and it
also-
looks intentional.
another thing too is
whether
like
it is
when-
or not.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when they're doing these caricatures, they could have very easily leaned in and do a different caricature with Halsey. I jokingly called him Ballsy Halsey the entire time because he literally shows up in the sharpest suit I've ever seen. The stereotypical gangster, like wide shoulder, the fedora.
Yep.
He shows up and he's got like these giant ass lapels, and he walks in and he's just like, "The name's Halsey. I'm a explorer. Or what is he? A professor or something like? I'm an archaeologist.
He was from the museum, the university.
The museum.
Yeah.
I'm here for I'm here for the museum, and I'm not going to get in your way. See, but I'm just here because there's supposedly a mummy buried in the sands.
He was a character, man. He was strong. He was a very strong character.
Yeah, and so he shows up like that. I'm like, the thing is that if you were going to do all these caricatures with all the side characters, what would have been hilarious is take this gangster stereotype guy who's working for the museum and the entire time have him go into what would have been hilarious.
To be fair, he was also kind of a stereotype, but that was it.
Well, he's just the stereotypical adventurer who got the girl in the end.
Yes.
But
well, and the boss is a stereotype. Never mind, they are all stereotypes.
Just have him go to the sand pit though in his
I
suit.
stand corrected. All the white people are also stereotyped. I just realized this. The boss is literally like angry at everyone for no reason. The entire film?
Yeah. I'm tired of arguing with people.
We're not even arguing with you, sir.
In the back of his head, he's just like... secretly in the back of his head, he's just like, this is the only excitement I have in my life.
I think it was just because those ones made me uncomfortable, but now I realize it. No, they are all the whole cast is all stereotypes. The mummy girl is just the damsel in distress. She's the typical, like...
The secretary is literally the ditzy hot secretary.
The
manager is a pissed off guy. The guy who dies the first time is a stereotypical hermit, self-appointed caretaker of a random church.
Yes!
And he's a stereotype because he's actually the most dramatic, and he's the one that has like a holy quest.
By the way, that's my iconic. My iconic is that the strongest actor in this film was this random throwaway dude from the background. He was like a Shakespearean. He acted like he was out there with the greats, like Picard. What's his name?
John Luke.
Yeah, but the actor.
Oh, Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart. Like Sir Patrick Stewart, like where he takes one of the things that made like Star Trek: The Next Generation so iconic is he took the acting role seriously, whereas Shatner kind of treated it almost like a joke, but like he
played it as a swashbuckling
yes
TV show.
Whereas he played it like a sci-fi show, whereas Patrick Stewart acted like this was he took the plot very seriously.
Yeah, the guy who comes down the stairs to defend the church is very much like, you could tell that he got really into this character for 5 minutes of screen time. And the other thing is that like the righteous indignation that he gets when he literally goes in, he's like, remove these pagan things from this holy place.
And he's not even like,
it's like
you're fiends. He's like, they don't belong here. Get them out. Like that was the most intense acting I've seen from one of these films in a while.
And even when he's getting strangled.
Yes.
Like he actually makes like it's not even like a
he's like
he's actually
no,
it's actually like sounds like
it was really good, and that was epic, and that was like it's probably the strongest acting I've seen in the entire freaking series. So that was my iconic, was that random throwaway guy that just acted his heart out for those 5 minutes on screen.
I sure hope he got the role.
But I'm glad we did talk about the stereotyping stuff, because neither of us kind of grabbed that. But I think that's like our dual, like, kind of ugly iconic thing that we put together, where it's weirdly ugly and iconic at the same time, where they just randomly do these stereotyping of the cast that's never really been done in any of these films up to this point. It's uncomfortable. It's very on the nose, and it feels weird. It's just odd. So
it's an oddity. It's not even like ugly iconic. It's odd, and it doesn't fit into Universal. Universal's never really done this, so it's shocking when they did it.
I think and I think it's why we did spend a little bit of time picking on that when it wasn't really one of our. But I think it's worth mentioning for sure. Yeah, it's worth talking about.
Anyway, so we went good, bad, ugly, iconic.
We did.
Modern audience. So Universal comes in and they say, we want to make another Mummy movie, and we're thinking something along the lines of the Mummy's Curse. It doesn't have to necessarily be the Mummy's Curse, but we're kind of in the mood to make a modern retelling of this kind of story. How would you take a story like this and bring it into like a modern audience? What are some things?
I can't remember exactly all of what I kind of went into with the last one, how I would redo it, but I remember one of the things that I would have done with the last one was give the lead, like the ending where they all just stand there and just let it happen, walk away. Like, you would give more impact to her death. Following that up, from that film where she died like with her lover. Like they were, and you have to remember too, the last film, for those if they don't remember when we talked about it, the two main leads, one being the girl mummy from this one,
Princess
Anaka, was a student from Egypt that was dating the lead male. They were in a long-term relationship. Like,
like
he was going to ask her to marry him. Like, this was a serious. This wasn't like two side characters you just met. They were already deeply involved with each other when it started, and so it hits really hard when she goes down. That should be an integral part of this. She should come. What I would do. The basic plot of the movie's fine. Like doing, having the mummy killing everybody and stuff like that, doing the things he's doing. But I would give a strong B plot to the female mummy coming out on her own and it'd be about identity. She's trying to figure out who she is. She has a little bit of memory loss. She remembers some things, but it's not the mummy that she's talking about. It's the old lover that she was in love with in her past life. And the realization that she's gone being a strong part of her character development. That when there's this scene in this film that set that tone for me really strongly, where she wakes up and she's like, where am I? Everything looks odd and different. And this is weird. And I think they were trying to say things are out of time, but nothing's really changed that much.
Well, because the time skip is loose at best.
Yeah, right.
It is squishy.
But I mean, 30 years, 25 years is fine. The issue is that they haven't shown anything in the film that's changed that she would have noticed. Show the university. Show him. The old boyfriend is now an adult. You know, he's in his it was 25 years. He was just graduated from.
He would have been about 57, I would say, because he was probably about 23. If he was like working on his master's.
Yeah,
like
23. That sounds about right.
He'd be like 23, 24.
He'd be almost 60 years old. Yeah,
he'd be.
He should be in this film
58.
and an intricate part of that relationship. And what I would do with this film is I would have her like seeking him out and like runs into his son, thinking that that's him, and she's avoiding the mummy. She doesn't want anything to do with the mummy. She's seeking out him. The mummy's seeking her. So, because in this one, they were almost seeking each other, but she didn't realize she was. No. Have her going this way, and he's following. I liked the part where the priest's apprentice murders him over. But it is a little frustrating because they do rush that. Like, why all of a sudden is he into the secretary girl? When was that a thing? Develop that more. Have him like fawning over the secretary girl. And that's, you know, he kills her over her. While the mummy girl is seeking her old life, and they entangle it. Like, he's killing people on the way to him, starts getting involved with the family. The one that used to be her lover recognizes her and is like, oh my gosh, you know, you don't look a day older than the last time I met you. And the struggle between the two families as the mummy's starts killing members of his family, or kills him, and the son then has to avenge. And have the son be the doctor guy, be the son of the I thought he was at first. When it first introduced him, I thought he was going to be related to the previous person, but it was a completely new character. Tie it, if you're going to make it a sequel, tie the characters in, tie the legacy in, tie it together, wrap it up nicely, and give closure to the you finally give the dad closure, you give the son closure, you give the mummy closure, and I would end it fairly similar, where the priest is killed by his apprentice, who then tries to, but make it, I would, instead of make it the secretary, I'd make it the actual mummy girl, make it her. Okay. If you're going to do it, don't add another character that's the same basic character. You could tell they tried to split. It almost feels like the mummy, the girl Anaka, Princess Anaka, and the secretary were supposed to be the same character, and they split them into two separate characters. Make them the same character. Make them the same person. She starts becoming the secretary. She starts becoming into normal life and everything, and he starts getting enamored with her, but the priest's assistant is jealous of that and wants her for himself. That works a lot better than having two characters that are basically the same person in this film. For some reason, you made them different. I don't know why they did that, but that's what I would do. Make those two the same character, make more interconnected, make a more streamlined plot with the families intertwined, and otherwise just let the action roll with that. Like that's all you really need to do to make it more modern, and you can have, you know, high action and the mummy murdering people and all that fun stuff. But she has more to do, and to finish it, she gives into her mummy nature. She protects her lover from the priest's apprentice. Karlak ends up killing him, and then
You mean Kharis?
What did I say, Karlak?
You said Karlak. You invoked the name of Muscle Mommy.
Oops. Kharis. Kharis and her, she gives in to him in the end in order to satiate him from killing him. Make it work. Or if you want to make it a happier ending, you can let them be together. But which I guess that depends an awful lot on how recently this came from the previous one, because I think this one was actually a year after the last Mummy film, right?
Yeah, I think it was like a year
Yeah.
or two.
It is rough making two sad endings in a row, which they did with this one, and it ends with Anaka being back in her tomb.
Right, but you know, the car is being destroyed, I think.
It doesn't actually give his
Well,
fate.
it never does, yeah.
It doesn't show what happens to him. It just ends without any kind of closure. It needs some closure. Either she sacrifices herself to save her new love, because in the last one she just gets taken away. But if she actually sacrifices herself for him, it gives it more meaning than just he wins, because then she kind of wins even though she loses, or have them be happily ever after. But that also depends on what you want to do. If you want to do another one, if you want to make it a trilogy, have her sacrifice herself. If you want to end it there, make it happy ended.
Yeah,
because it closes her story. It gives her closure, because she doesn't get any closure in the first one.
Yeah, not really, outside of death.
Your turn.
With closure. All right, so one of the things I'd lean into is the fact that it's the mummy's curse. There's a curse nature. I would have a similar introduction. They're trying to clear out the swamp, probably sanitation issue. Maybe they're trying to develop the land. Maybe they're trying to make like a water treatment facility or something like that. There is a reason that they're going in. Now, the way that I would change it up, though, is that the people who are going in are actually the cult. And the cult, in the last like 100 years or so, have established themselves not just as, you know, this random religious sect, but an actual like financial powerhouse where they own quite a bit of land. They have made a bit of money on the relics. They've made a bit of money on all the different discoveries. They really took advantage in the early 1900s with Egyptology and how it kind of took off. So they are actually the ones that are behind clearing the swamp. They are under the guise of, we're draining the swamp for health reasons, for a water treatment facility, for cheap housing even. Whereas it wouldn't make sense for them to do it for cheap housing because it's a swamp. The ground's not good. Why would you build houses on top of it? And the family of the lover from the last film, the main male lead,
Right.
he is adamant that they do not touch it because it is sacred. The ground is to him and his family and his friends and the people of the town very sacred because this woman drowned here.
It was a local tragedy.
It was a local tragedy, and it was like a defining tragedy. So they're like, don't drain the swamp. We don't want to excavate the bodies, or we believe that the mummy had accomplished what he accomplished, and we're kind of like we've been observing the land, and he hasn't come out, so we don't want to mess with it, because part of the thing was that if he got the girl, he fulfilled his part of the curse and he becomes immortal.
Right.
And the other people are like, oh, that's just a bunch of superstition. They've hired a bunch of local folks that are just like, oh, it's just superstitious, whatever. It's been 30, 40 years, and it's just like one woman who drowned in the lake or something, whatever. So they go and they start, draining the swamp, and the priests come in, and they're like, okay, now's the time. We're going to get Kharis back. We're going to have our mighty mummy's hand to enact our will and terrify our enemies or whatever it is. Like, just, we want to take more people out, and the mummy is the best weapon that we've ever had to do that. So they try to resurrect the mummy. They find him and they kind of bring him back, but his curse has been fulfilled. So while he's awakening, they think, oh, if we give him the tannin leaves, the tannin leaves, he'll be back under our will and stuff. And it's like, no, his curse was actually fulfilled. He killed the girl. So he's immortal, and he's like in control of himself, and he's free. And so he starts taking life from them, and he starts going back, more to like the 1999 Mummy, where he's actually regenerating himself and he's becoming even more powerful. Kind of start leaning into that a bit more. Meanwhile, while he's doing this and he's started taking power, the girl's body resurrects, and she comes out and she's a mummy. And when she's out, we start focusing on her kind of more as our main character, and she's a tragic character. She is pulled in and attracted to the people from her previous life who she loved.
Right.
And she is, without meaning to, hunting them down and draining them of their lives and resurrecting herself. And she might not even realize that she's doing it. We might get some points of view where we kind of see her from her eyes, where she's like reaching out, like in a dreamlike state, trying to reach out to somebody who she loved. But then it like flashes to, and it's like, no, she's like this like deteriorated corpse, like caressing a cheek of the old man.
Kind of like taking the 2017's like mummy kind of idea, where she's like using people to bring herself back. Yeah. But
the thing is that we're viewing it and we're like, oh, the mummy's cursed. She's now a mummy and she's cursed to be a walking plague, as he was a walking plague. But it turns out that as she's getting more and more into her senses, she is drawn to him, and she thinks that that's part of the curse, is that she's supposed to be like his mate forever. He's supposed to kind of do all these, she's supposed to be like his helper. She's wreaked havoc, and she's destroyed what remained of her previous life, essentially, in order to be resurrected. But then it comes out that she was actually resurrected as the balance to Kharis. Why would the gods bless this evil person to live and be a plague on mankind forever without the balance? So the balance was always, yes, he fulfilled it, but his love of power has overtaken his love of the original Anaka.
Right. He now loves his position in revenge more than he loves the original reason he was put there in the first place.
Yes, and as a result, the reincarnation of Anaka is his balance. He doesn't love her, and she doesn't love him, but she's able to seek him out, and she is his ultimate weakness.
That actually is one thing that I really liked about the 1999 movie series, is you in the Scorpion King one, the Mummy 2, the second one. Mummy 2, the Mummy the Scorpion King.
The Mummy Returns.
The Mummy Returns, that's what it's called. The Mummy Returns. That had the Scorpion King one in it. Mm-hmm. He started to love, he feared death and loved power more than he loved her. And that was like a major part of that film. And that was something that I think I was actually almost hoping that some of these old films had some of that, because this one was like the closest we really got. But Kharis always just does what he's told. And it'd be really interesting to see him let loose. Like what he would do if he was no longer on the leash.
Yeah, and that's where I would go, is he's not on the leash. He's become a curse. He's become a plague on the earth. She's cursed, but she's also his balance. And you can either finish it with her having destroyed him happy ending, or if you wanted it to continue on as a trilogy, she comes to the realization that she is the balance, but something happened to where
This is the last one of the Mummy films, right?
It might be.
Mummy's Curse.
I think the last one's like Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy.
Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy.
Yeah. So it's the last actual like serious mummy film.
Yeah, this is the last of the series Mummy film.
So if it is the last one,
fourth
then...
one, there's the Mummy, Mummy's Hand, Mummy's Tomb,
Ghost, Curse.
Ghost, and Curse.
So this is the fourth Lon Chaney one, but
it's the fifth one total. But
Yeah.
the second one, the Mummy's Hand, kind of pretends like the original Mummy never happened.
Yeah.
It, like, restarts the lore all over again.
But yeah, I would just I would lean into a thing where she's the curse. She's going to.
I am actually kind of sad that this is the last one, because this started to give me hope that it could get better a little bit. Because despite we tearing apart a little bit, it had some promise, like it was leading into something. And it ends on a cliffhanger, like they could reuse it. I guess they just never did.
I think they probably just like planned to be like, we keep bringing these creatures back. We might as well just not even bother trying to destroy them this time, because we'll probably bring it back. And then they just never got around to it again. Because I think that around this time, 1940s.
That's fair, because they kind of like definitively kill off Frankenstein's monster like twice, and then they get less.
Like 4 times.
Yeah, they he drops in lava. He's like
Sulfur pit.
Things he shouldn't be able to survive, but then like they just freeze him later because like, yeah, we're gonna use him again.
Yeah. So I would just say that I think that Universal just assumed that they'd still be able to make these things as many times as they wanted to, but the last 3 or 4 films showed like a really bad culture shift where it wasn't horror, it was about being cheesy, and as a result, I think it started to lose favor with the audiences.
Yeah.
So they weren't able to actually continue the stories like they kind of.
The last one felt like a true horror film. It was a little bit of cheese, but it did feel like horror-esque.
Well, it had an ending that was horror.
Sure. House of Dracula. I'm interested to see how they finish it off, because that's like the last really of like the shebang, and then they have the She-Wolf of London before the Abbott Costello films in here, and this one.
And then it's Creature.
Creature shows up twice throughout the Abbott Costello ones. No, 3 times. Creature from the Back Lagoon, and then immediately following Revenge of the Creature, and then an Abbott Costello film, and then the Creature walks among us. So they shove the Creature in 3 films at the very end of the tail end of the, which is kind of what they did with the Mummy. Reading the series, I know we talk about all of this almost at the end of every one, but as we watch through these, you see how each previous film gets stacked into the next one and how they affect each other. But the spacing is really interesting because very early on, there was significant difference. The first 4 films were 4 very different monsters: Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy, and Invisible Man. Then they started doing sequels, Bride of Frankenstein, but then The Werewolf of London, which was the werewolf for the first time, which was kind of a rough movie, and then a Dracula film, then a Frankenstein film, then The Invisible Man again, then The Mummy again. So they recycled through all those same ones. Then they do Invisible Woman. This is when they started going, just flipping with 2 of them: Invisible, Wolf, Frankenstein, Invisible, Mummy, Frankenstein, Phantom of the Opera. All of a sudden, and then a Dracula, and then Invisible, then Mummy, then Frankenstein. It follows almost not an exact like pattern loop, but they never really focus too hard on one monster at a time. They rotate through them.
Yeah.
And it's a great success for the most part. I think from where we started with Dracula, the first 4 films were pretty strong. Invisible Man being our favorite amongst the first 4.
Yeah.
By far. Bride of Frankenstein, though it was quirky, was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It was probably the best sequel.
Yes. And then we started getting to this point where the films, they started really high and they start doing this a little bit, but I think the first third, they pop up, they keep raising the bar while getting a little less exciting, but they do really well. Around the time we got to
probably
Frankenstein was the Wolfman, you could tell a significant drop in the quality and the focus on horror, and they get a little more sporadic, a little more up and down, a little crazier. it's been a roller coaster, and I'm really excited, honestly, and dreading a little bit at the same time how we finish this off, because this set that we keep plugging this set, but
Well, we always do. So
why don't you plug it real quick? Yeah.
What we're watching is we're watching the Universal Classic Monsters Complete 30 Film Collection. It was created for the 100th anniversary of Universal Studios. It's a Blu-ray remastering of the majority of the classic monster movies, essentially all the ones that are just like big and everybody talks about. It's a very fun series. We are not sponsored, but we do like to say if you want to watch these classic monsters, this is a great set. We've been really enjoying them. The sound's pretty good in most of them, but the visuals are just gorgeous since the beginning.
Yes.
They have been beautifully remastered. So if you want to follow along with us, it is the Classic Monsters Complete 30 Film Collection Blu-ray collection.
But to follow along with that, like, we're more than kind of looks like we've done these first two columns. We're on this third column. It looks almost like we're 2/3 through, but these are actually, there's less films in this last set because they're all 2 lines each.
Yeah.
Whereas most of these are a single line. We're about 3/4 of the way through the series.
Yeah,
We
we'll probably
have
finish by the end of this year.
1,
if I
2,
remember.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 films left. And most of the rest of them are Abbott and Costello versions of the films where they do more comic and slapstick comedy versions of them. So we're running out of horror. Like, we've really blasted through, like, the horror of this series, and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the horror drying out, and I'm just interested to see where they go.
I am too. And if you're interested in seeing how it goes, be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. We do a Universal Monster movie every month. We're also watching all the classic Godzilla films with our other host, Pat. We're watching The Evil Dead with him as well. And we are in the middle, getting to the end of our Mel Brooks series, where we're watching all the Mel Brooks movies that he wrote, produced, and directed. And then we do B movies. And then we try to do some new movies once in a while. That's been just kind of rough this year, though. Not a great year for film so far.
And we also want to make sure that, if you guys have input on what we watch next, like, say something. We'd love to hear, like, what you're interested in watching, because we're coming up on the end of 3 major series all at the same time. Mel Brooks is going to end first, and these horror films will end, and the Godzilla even will come up.
Well, the Godzilla's coming up in like 3 years. The one that's coming to an end's Evil Dead.
That's the one.
That's only
Evil
got
Dead.
5 movies,
Yeah.
and we're about to do the second one.
So yeah, we got some stuff to do. So we'll see.
Yeah. So if there's any series in particular that you would like us to revisit, let us know in the comments below. We really do appreciate your guys' feedback. Otherwise, like this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below about this video, future videos. We love your guys' engagement. It makes us feel less lonely. Speaking about not being lonely, be sure to share us with your friends as well if they like movies and they like our sense of humor. If you like our sense of humor, they probably will too. So be sure to share us. Otherwise, I don't really have anything else.
That's it for me.
All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks for watching.